that closeness that this place affords. It doesn't just afford it, again, it cultivates it, it's purposeful.
In terms of empowerment at this school, no better memory for me articulate that than Kate Weisberg, 7th grade, I think, in the bike group. We're talking the mid-'80s, and bubbly, energetic, smart, excited, athletic young girl. And she was one of the youngest kids in the bike group, and that year it was filled with some big jocks who were really going to push it to the limit. And that year was the first year we biked from Ithaca to the beach, to the New Jersey shore, to a house that I had grown up with on the ocean. This is in May. And over 5.5 days, we biked an average of about 70 miles a day. We had a day that was 90 miles, carrying all of our gear, completely self-sufficient and independent. Actually, it was a car that had some of the group material, but everybody carrying their own stuff. And made it from Ithaca on our own steam to the ocean, to the Atlantic Ocean and the beach. And that night we arrived, we went around the room doing a check-in, and it got around to Kate. And she just said, I got on a bicycle in Ithaca, New York, and I bicycled to the ocean. And if I can do that, I can do anything in the world. And she followed up by saying, and the next time I get in a fight with my parents, I can just get on my bike and just go. So at that point, that was empowerment for her. She's gone on to found a theater that's still, a youth theater that's still going on in Ithaca, and do extraordinary other work in her life. But it was that experience and the ACS experience that gave her a sense of her own capacity and her own empowerment as a young person that it has a legacy for the school.
We had a great philosophy class that first year. There were like 24 kids in it or something like that. And 3 of the kids from that class went on to go to graduate school in philosophy, and 2 of them are professors. And one of them's a full professor at Harvard. So it's a sense of students, being so tied into their program, so involved with their education, that they carried it through their lives afterwards. So that's one thing. Another thing that I think is really nice. And then think of another student who also was in drama and psychology class, who went on to work on trying to bring peace between, in the Middle East. So that's another amazing thing. And feeling the empowerment as a kid makes it able for you to go out in the real world and do that.
Over the years, if I go back 10 or 12 or even 15 years, there was so much pride and so much respect about being a member of ACS. The kids and their families would boast about, I go to ACS. I got the greatest school in the world. And they would talk about it, and they would live it, and they would walk the talk. They would, be respectful and responsible to each other. Slowly we were losing that. It's now more, I get the sense it's more selfish. Everybody's worried about themselves and what's happening with them. They don't care so much about the community the way they used to. We've lost a fair amount of that. Now, there's still a certain segment of the society here that embraces the community and does everything they can to hold us all together, but there's a segment that really doesn't care. And they undermine what we do, and they're disrespectful, and they treat each other poorly, and they call each other names, and just all that kind of stuff that for a long time didn't happen here.
I'm concerned about ACS is that I think students frequently lack a sense of perspective, especially if they've only gone here. I don't think they're fully aware of the incredible level of freedom and privileges that they enjoy. And it can be a rude awakening if you go out into the outside world. You discover it if you have a job, or if you take a course at the high school, suddenly you say, oh, it's a very different environment, and what I have there is special. But with that freedom goes a sense of responsibility. And what one hopes is that students will eventually realize, okay, I have the freedom to essentially do a lot, but I don't have to necessarily exercise it in destructive ways. I can and use it positively. And I've seen that happen enough that I keep coming back. I keep believing it.
I have seen kids who, when they left here, had some room to grow, needed to grow. And in just a very short time, they did. It seems like once they left here and left this comfortable environment, something else took over and clicked in, and they realized that they had to step it up and improve. And I'll see them a year or 2 or 3 later somewhere, and they're totally different people. They're like, they grew up overnight. As soon as they left here, they grew up. It's awesome. So, although I sometimes feel distressed or disturbed about things, I don't give up hope, because I know even later on, some of these lessons will come back to home, and then they'll get it.
Staff and students are given the permission and freedom and encouragement and I was going to say wisdom even, to take things, one, in depth, so that you really understand. It's not understanding so you have something on your wall, like an A and a report card. It's the understanding which that comes from really wrestling with something, whether it's an idea, an artistic project, like a play or a video like this one, or whether it's, figuring out something about your life. So your own inner life becomes a reality in the classroom. And for other schools and other kids and other teachers, there's a separation. Your school is not life. So many people say that. And I think that's awful. First of all, it's false. It's an illusion, because life is life. If you're living it, it's life. And so there isn't a separation between school and life. And even more, as a teacher, you should recognize and honor a student and yourself as a teacher, as a whole being.
I do disagree with the fact that school life and personal life are one thing and they're not separate. I do believe they're separate, but again, with the connections with teachers and relationships, that definitely helps with your personal life, because the people who I come back to see are the people who helped me during my hard times. And it's because of the strong relationships that we have that I still keep in touch with them.
I think that ACS was a very key part of my life. It was during my time at ACS that I actually found out I have a slight learning disability, and I started really working on that. And so it was with my friends here that I was able to work through some of the issues that I had. And so just learning how to kind of be a part of the democratic process, I guess. And that's not something you get at all schools. I mean, going away to college, I wasn't ever as involved as I was at ACS. And that was a valuable experience. And just, coming back, it's interesting to me because I see a lot of new faces and a lot of people, in particular teachers, and also a lot of students I don't know very well. But I still feel like at the core it's the same place. And that, there's still some of the core teachers that were there for me when I was at ACS and who, put 110% into helping me succeed. And so that's really gratifying for me to know that, we still have, really great teachers who are dedicated to the mission of educating our youth.
ASM is one of the branches of government. We essentially have 4. The staff have a staff meeting in which they operate by consensus. All the staff agree on decisions, and they get to do a lot of deciding about classes and so forth, because that's obviously their domain. The principal is one of our decision-making bodies. His powers are limited to calling emergency ASMs and immediate health and safety, so that there's no unsafe situation that can really go on for a long time. Otherwise, you can't break the status quo without an all-school decision. And we have our site-based council, it's a small committee. It's formed of parents, community representatives, staff, and students, and they discuss certain things. They're mostly an advisory board, and they deal with a lot of allocation of money. And lastly, we have ASM, and ASM is, as I said, it's really students and staff. Anyone can come and speak, theoretically. Normally it's just the students and staff speaking. Basically, ASM decides on our rights and responsibilities as students, decides on what the philosophy of our school is, it decides on the timetable, how the day is broken up. And right now, we're actually in a very interesting transitional period. A proposal was recently passed to try out a new form of democracy, and that's the one I'm explaining. In the past, there was a lot of compromise between the staff and students that had to happen separately. Now we do it all